Because he told me we were going to be out of here by 7:45 tonight, and he just jinxed us.
I like him.
Oh gosh. All right, so welcome everyone. Thank you for being here for the regular meeting of the Franklin City School Board. First up, do we have a motion to come out of closed?
I move that the school board, having been in closed session, pursuant to a proper motion, come out of closed session.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? That motion carries. So we do need to certify that closed. We're going to amend the agenda in just a minute to add another closed session, but we need a certification of our closed session.
Whereas the Franklin City School Board has convened a closed meeting on this date pursuant to an affirmative recorded vote and in accordance with the provisions of the Virginia Freedom of Information Act, and whereas Section 2.23712D of the Code of Virginia requires a certification by the school board that such closed meeting was conducted in conformity with Virginia law. Now therefore be it resolved that the Franklin City School Board hereby certifies that, to the best of each member's knowledge, 1, only public business matters lawfully exempted by Virginia law were discussed in the closed meeting to which the certification applies, and 2, only such public business matters as were identified in the motion convening the closed meeting were heard, discussed, or considered.
We have a motion for certification. Do we have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? That motion carries. Next up, motions from closed session. We have a personnel agenda and we have the addendum to the agenda. Let's take them separately since we've got some stuff going on with the second one. So do I have a motion in regards to the personnel agenda?
I move to approve.
We have a motion to approve. Do we have a second?
A second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? That motion carries. Next up, we have the personnel agenda addendum. Do we have a motion? Would someone like for me to state what the motion should be if they're
Yeah.
going to make the motion?
Yes.
Okay. Do we have a motion to approve the personnel agenda addendum with the adjustment to line 17 and the exclusion of lines 31 through 38?
Also move to approve.
We have a motion to approve. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? That motion carries. 2.6, Pledge of Allegiance. If you all would all stand and join me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Next up, approval of the agenda. Do we have, well, first we're going to need to amend the agenda.
I move to amend the agenda to add a closed session at the end.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? That motion carries. So now do we have a motion to approve the amended agenda?
I motion to approve the amended agenda.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
A second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? That motion carries. Next up, roll call. Ms. Moore, if you would so lead us.
Here.
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 Present.
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 Next up is citizens' time. Ms. Moore, do we have anyone signed up? Nope. Next up then, 2.10, maybe Mr. Walters was right. ESSER 3 funding, as you know, at every public regular meeting, we hold our public comment opportunity on the ESSER 3 funding, which is outlined and available for review. We have gotten underway with spending that, so some of those items we cannot adjust at this point, but we're going to open up for our public meetings, our public comment section. So does anyone wish to speak in regards to the ESSER 3 funding? Does anyone wish to speak in regards to the ESSER 3 funding? And one last time, do we have anyone that wishes to speak in regards to the ESSER 3 funding? Hearing none, public comment is now closed. Next up, item number 3, consent agenda. We've got 2 items. The first is a proposed calendar change request. Dr. Sterling, if you would like to give a brief summation.
That would be this Monday, a request for the Juneteenth holiday addition to the calendar.
That was not scheduled in, as
Yes.
you can see. And as everyone may recall, that actually became a holiday after we'd already approved the calendar last year, and it was just an oversight. We never went back and changed that. Any questions or comments on that one?
Yes, because that was supposed to be the first day that starts summer school. Do we need to do anything to amend the calendar that starts in July, like to add extra seat hours or anything? Or
Well, that'll be something we do at the school level. As a board, we never approve like the dates of summer school.
Okay.
They're fluid.
so it'll okay, great.
Yeah.
Any other questions, comments? Next up is the Vhsl annual membership application. As you can see, we have lots and lots of sports. Mr. Feltz, I understand there's a couple of boys that may be interested in boys volleyball, so don't be surprised if you see some start soliciting you for that.
Josh.
All right. Any questions on the Vhsl membership application? Hearing none, do we have a motion on the consent agenda?
I move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
I second.
We have a motion and we have a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? That motion carries. Next up, and I'm scared because I know what happened last time I saw this on the agenda. Item number 4, special recognitions. Dr. Sterling, do you have any clue what that might be?
I'm going to yield the floor to our Vice Chairman, Mr. Robert Holt. I do have a clue, though. Not like that.
Dr. Shelton, would you join Amy and I down front? Does anybody out there have a box of Kleenex?
Oh. There goes 7:45.
So, resolution of recognition and appreciation. Whereas the educational goals for these districts are chartered by local school boards, which serve as advocates for public education as they work with school administrators, teachers, parents, and members of the 6 minutes. That's what Walter said. I got 6 minutes. All right, so next up, financial report, Mr. Ryder.
Thank you, Board Chair. Let me say, for the entire time that I've been working there, it's been my great honor to be working with you, Ms. Sheldon. Both of you have always operated with the highest degree of integrity and the deepest degree of heart. And I thank you for your guidance in my career at Franklin City Public Schools. And so, without further ado, make sure I get over my timeline, I will go into the vouchers for payment. And so here they are. It's the same format. Everything is, there's no surprises. Everything is exactly as we had anticipated and entered. The only thing on that third page there, $119,000, that was the power mechanical. That was the local match for the Vsba system. $44,000 to SunTrust. That's the fourth of 4 lease payments right on schedule. And then a smattering of grant expenditures. And so the next month that you'll see will be the last one for fiscal year 2022, as we are only a couple of weeks away from ending this fiscal year. Does anybody have any questions on the vouchers?
Any questions on the vouchers? All right, I think you're good to move along, Mr. Ryder.
All right, very well. This is the second to the last month of the fiscal year, May 31st. So we're almost to the end. Fund 10, the all-important Fund 10, everything's pretty much on track. The construction lines are, of course, not nearly as high as the percentage for the year. 90% of the year is gone, but you will see in June
questions on the financial statements? I will add the state calculator came out right at, not quite 2 weeks ago. And the finance committee has not had an opportunity yet to meet to go over that. Mr. Ryder is making sure he gets every last second out of my service and my term, and that committee will meet on the 29th. That will be one of the things that we're looking at is the state calculator and the budget. Amendments went back yesterday on the budget. The governor had through yesterday to sign it or send his amendments back. He sent them back yesterday, and there's like 40 amendment requests to the budget. There are several, there are several in regards to education. Most of the ones in regards to education are where he's asking for an increase to each of those line items. So he's asking for a revision of the amount stated in whatever line that is in the budget. So that has been sent back, so we will see where that goes. But it was none of the line items were a reduction that I looked at. They were all significant increases. And it was a few that were just some verbiage changes, but most of it was all pertaining to dollars, and it was all increases. So now we wait to see what happens with those amendments that were sent back. So yes, we know that the state calculator's out there, and yes, we know that the state budget has been put out there. Now we wait for the amendment cycle to go through. And we'll see where we go with that. Okay.
Shouldn't take but a few minutes. This topic here, though, this is something that when the city has considered issuing bonds to pay for some of our capital expenditures,
Any questions in regards to the conversation on the literary fund?
Okay.
Yeah, probably. I need time to review this, actually.
Well, and I will say this is coming to us, I hate to put it this way, but kind of last minute. The city just had a conversation Monday night at their meeting about this and proposed this. The timeline that they originally had, this would not come to us until our July meeting, which right now tentatively is scheduled for July 21st. The concern was that being that it is known that there are going to be funds going, a limited amount of funds going into this literary fund, there's going to be more than likely several applications coming in from various school divisions across the state. So everyone's going to be competing for this limited pool of money. So council decided they wanted to get it to us as soon as possible. So they rushed through this. They did get the attorneys, and we've had our attorneys as well to review this resolution to make sure that it says what it needs to say and is formatted properly, and everyone was in agreement that this is good to go. But if we don't take action on this tonight, it's going to delay that application process until at least late July.
So it's more or less first come, first served?
Yep.
So even though it's called a literary fund, it's just really like a semantics because what we're using it for is repairs.
Correct. Correct. And this is, the resolution is just that we're intending to apply for this, and if we are awarded, that the city is paying it back, that it will be paid back. And I can read the resolution just to put it on record. Resolution of the City of Franklin School Board approving an application for a loan from the Literary Fund of Virginia. Whereas the City of Franklin School Board, the school board, has determined that there is an urgent need to make capital improvements to the City of Franklin, Virginia, the city, school facilities, specifically roof replacements and similar renovations at various school facilities for school purposes, together known as the project, that the school board will make an application to the Literary Fund of the Commonwealth of Virginia for a literary loan, referred to as the literary loan, relating to the project in the total aggregated amount of $2 million, which will be repaid by the school board and be treated as general obligation bonds of the city for the purpose of financing the project for school purposes, or to otherwise cooperate with the city to obtain long-term financing of the project. And now therefore be it resolved by the City of Franklin School Board that the application for a literary loan for the project is hereby approved, and the superintendent and other school board representatives are hereby authorized to take all actions to assist in completing and submitting such application to the Virginia Department of Education. Further resolved that the school board does hereby declare its intent to reimburse itself or the city with the proceeds of tax-exempt borrowings for the project, known as the bonds, for certain expenditures related to the project, known as the expenditures, which the school board of the city have paid or which will be paid beginning no earlier than the date that is 60 days prior to the date of adoption of this resolution. The maximum total amount of the project is $2 million, of which approximately $2 million is expected to, there's a typo.
Yeah.
It should be be financed with tax-exempt obligations. The school board reasonably expects on the date hereof that it will reimburse the expenditures with proceeds of the bonds. Further resolved that this resolution shall take effect immediately. one question that may be popping up in some of your heads, because I know it popped up in ours and it's already been asked, is that it says that the school board will repay. And that was
my
clarified that that did not mean we are repaying, the city would repay.
Okay.
Then why does it say that?
We did have that conversation.
I mean, I see further down where it says the board or the city have paid, so it says either or there, but then earlier on, I did wonder that, you know, why does it say that, the board, if it's gonna be the city?
Yes, if I may, I actually read that paragraph and actually called the attorney for the city back and posed those very questions. And I said, are you sure that's worded right? And the attorney was put off by that question. So yes, of course it's worded right, you know, and so he said, you know, when these dollars come in, it has yet to be, it actually has yet to be determined when the state funds it. Do they send it to the city and then the city pays the contractors? Or does it send it to the city gives it to us, and then we pay the contractors, and then the city, you know, pays the bonds that they issue the bonds. So from their standpoint, from the financier's standpoint, which is the state, you know, the city and for this particular purpose, this transaction, the city and the school division are basically one and the same. And so they kind of use the words interchangeable, but the city is primarily, the city's liability is we can't issue bonds, pay it back anyway. So they all know that. It was a good question.
So the city council is supportive of this application? of the-
They're requesting it,
They're
actually.
requesting the application.
Yeah, this is in conversation with Davenport and Company, their financial advisor. This is an avenue they want to entertain for financing for the roof project, because it is a lower rate for repayment
Correct.
than they can get anywhere else. So this is the avenue that they want to pursue, attempt to pursue, we'll put it that way, for financing that roof project. And it's kind of a time sensitive, because they want to beat anyone else to the money,
Sure.
if at all possible.
Okay.
So those, divisions that applied for these monies in 2008,
The ones that are on the wait list.
are they still on the wait list? Wow.
So their applications have been approved, they're just waiting for money to become available. So my thought on that would be, as soon as that money is funded to the literary fund, they will be, as it says, first priority. So their projects will then be funded, should they still choose to go ahead and go through with that option through the literary fund.
Has the division secured price quotes?
Have we
slide
secured
6.
new or updated price quotes?
There was something, I'm sorry.
The June 13th through the 17th, I
Yeah.
saw that.
Mr. Ryder and his team was working on getting the newer price quotes that came from our joint meeting on Monday, our telephone conference.
Right.
You should have that.
I'm still waiting for the price quotes from the roofing contractor. Hoping to have them by today, but I didn't get them, so I guess it's gonna be tomorrow.
If I may, Ms. Johnson, I just need to be clear about what you're asking. Are you wondering if we would have to pay the bill? I just wasn't clear on what you were saying.
Right, so if, I understand that the money is coming to the school board because this is something done through VDOE, I guess.
Correct.
So it would make sense if they're giving us the money, that we are the ones responsible for it. And I hear that the city says that they're going to pay it back. I guess my concern is that they're going to say, hey, with the money that we've given you in the budget, make a payment. And are they paying us separately, or, you know, to make these payments, or is that going to be encumbered in our regular budget?
Excellent question. Jeff, I think this is something that we would have to look at, because if money comes in, then it would have to be in a separate line item. Because Ms. Johnson has the same concerns that I have, that our funding will be utilized to pay this money back, considering capital improvement is always a separate budget line item. So whatever we are approved of with the annual budget should never have to be used for capital improvement, because the city is supposed to fund us separately for that. So you're exactly right. What we get in our budget should not encompass the funding that we're trying to get from the literary fund. You're right. It should be a separate account.
Right, yeah, this is not something the school district would ever pay back. We're just gonna get the money, make the repairs, and the city pays the state for Virginia.
And you have every right as a board to say no. Because if that's something that they request, we have the right as a board
Well,
to say.
I think it would have been nice if
We don't
someone
have
from
to
the
sign
city
it.
had have been here to have this discussion,
Yeah.
since they're proposing it.
Right. I understand, you know, the city of Franklin is, you know, they need to borrow the money, and this is a great way to do it, and I get the low interest rate. I just feel like we're on the hook because of the terminology, and I can't rectify that in my head. Because it's easy
This
to
would
say
be
that, yeah,
apart
they
from
said
the
that, but.
regular- The concern is whether this is part of our regular budget or an addendum, basically.
If it would become a financial obligation of the school division, I think is more what your concern is.
Right, like,
Out of
are
our
they
regular
planning on
budget.
giving us
I
separate
mean, it's
money?
almost, to me, I understand that our budget would have to be amended to account for the work,
For the funds coming in.
for the funds coming in
Yes.
and then the funds being
Yeah.
going out.
But then I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Ms. Johnson, your concern is not the funds coming in, it's what about the payment
Right,
for the funds that come in?
Correct.
That monthly,
Correct.
quarterly, annual, whatever it is, payment.
whatever it is.
To repay the loan, where, is there,
Like when that
Will
starts,
there-
like let's say that it's a monthly payment and we have to, you know, make the payment. Is the city gonna say, we see that the payment is due the 15th, we're gonna transfer the funds to you on the 10th? Or are they going to say, we already gave you money in your budget, how you use it is how you use it, so, you know, cause they are giving us that money, are they expecting us to use that other money? Or are they going to be paying us as it goes along, as if it were their bill?
right,
Well,
or are
they-
they just going to be paying it themselves?
Well, they pay it all, Mr. Ryder, the city always, they're the ones with the checkbook, correct? So we just submit a voucher for any of the bills, correct?
I mean, we're not in the secondary level. They're primarily liable, that's it. No more liability extends to anything else.
Right. So the school, the most we do is submit a voucher to the city for a bill that needs to be paid. Is that correct? Am
Well,
I understanding that
if
right?
we have a bill that we need to pay, it has to come out of our budget.
Well, it sounds to me like our budget needs to be amended to include this project.
Well, it would have to be approved. The funding would have to be approved for us to add that in as a revenue. But Ms. Johnson's concern is payments for that revenue coming in, because it's loan money coming in, so then the payment to repay it, is that gonna be an expenditure of the division? Because if that were to happen, then that's gonna eat into our budget.
Right.
Now, that would not be our expense, because then the school division will be taking on debt, and it's illegal.
Right, yeah, we can't, so
Right, and
that,
well, that's kind of my point.
right,
We don't-
that does answer your question that, you know, we can't take on the debt anyway, so there's no way we could repay it. We can't, and it's bonds, we can't issue bonds either. They would be issued in the name of the city of Franklin, so they would be responsible for that.
So this vote is really, we're just trying to pursue the application at this
Right,
point.
we're just trying to pursue the
And
application.
then we have, if we need to work out budget adjustments or payment we have time
Right.
to do that with the city.
Right, because we can't do an adjustment until the money's awarded anyways.
Okay, okay. So there, Ms. Johnson's concern, my concern are legitimate, it's just that we don't have to address them at this moment. We're just pursuing the application.
Correct.
Okay.
Any other questions, comments, conversation, discussion?
I'm satisfied.
Hearing none, does anyone desire to make a motion in regards to the resolution?
So is the motion to approve the resolution?
To adopt the resolution, yes.
I move to adopt the resolution as presented.
We have a motion to adopt the resolution for the application for a loan from the Literary Fund of Virginia. Do we have a second? You good, Mr. Ryder?
Yes.
Okay. We've got a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and we have a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions?
I abstain.
That motion does carry. Anything else, Mr. Ryder?
The last presentation is on the state funding.
All right.
So, so the state funding, to remind everybody that the state funding actually declares both this year, the year you're in, and the next year's funding.
questions on the still yet completely unknown final state budget figures?
Is there a deadline that they have to approve?
June 30th.
June, so we'll know sooner than later.
Okay, so that's the roundabout what the state calculator looks like for funding for us. You know, that figure, of course, could go up if the governor's amendments are approved. I don't think it would go up considerably, even looking at the dollar amounts that were tied to some of those. I mean, if you're looking at like even in one tier, if it's $2 million across the board for the state, when you divide that by 133 school divisions, and it, you know, if it's divided out equally amongst them based upon enrollment, you know, that would be not a huge increase for us. So, all right, anything else, Mr. Ryder?
That is it, Chair Phillips. Thank you so much for your guidance and leadership on the board, and I look forward to hopefully working with you in the future too.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ryder. It has been a pleasure working with you as well. All right, next up, curriculum and instruction. And Dr. Burkhalter, Ms. Burkhalter, you know I'm never going to give that one up, right?
No, but you said it's officially your last meeting, so I guess you have to tell me on the streets when we pass each other. I am sorry, Mr. Ryder, we're going to have to move you down in instruction. All right, principals, you can come up. This is your data that I'm presenting, and that way I'll have you to maximize time. So officially, good evening, school board chair, vice chair, school board members, staff, and community. Tonight, I just wanted to give you an update on the preliminary SOL data. Mrs. Stratton wants me to preface that this is hand calculated with Mr. Phelps checking behind her. So know that these numbers are still fluctuating until they come in from the VDOE. You have to remember, it's easy for us to calculate out. Everybody can do basic math, but with the different types of growth that can be accounted for, then you take in work keys, then you take in VAT. That's where the tricky part comes, because we don't have the exact state formula for that. So with that being said, starting with SP Morton, you'll see we broke out each grade level reading for you. Third grade at 59%, fourth grade reading at 67%, grade 5 at 61% for a combined rate of 62%. For math, grade 3, 59%, grade 4 was at 62%, grade 5, 67%, with a combined rate of 63%. For grade 5 science, it was at 24%, and Virginia Studies at 48%. And then, because Dr. Sterling likes for the dramatic effect, here it is on the graph. So when you said that's right. So when I was looking at the data, because, you know, when you see the numbers at first, even Dr. Sterling, oh my gosh, you know, but it's really not that bad. So when you look at our baseline data, and this is pandemic numbers we're looking at last year, you see where we were on the left with the reading, and we were almost at the 40%. But then this year, you see we have already, just with the reading alone, a little above the 60%. So we are trending up, and we're trending back to hitting the target at a minimum. And then you see for the math as well, last year, we fell below the 20%, but this year we're above that 60% right now. And then with the science, it even inched up a little bit. So again, we just wanted you to see we are trending up in spite of the pandemic, in spite of the vacancies and things like that. Any questions for SP Morton data before we move to JP King?
I want to ask you something. I don't know if you don't have the previous year, do you?
Yes, so the previous year is the light blue, the teal.
No, the
2020.
2020.
They didn't test 2020.
Oh, okay. Or
Because of
2019,
COVID, yeah.
whenever they tested prior.
Yeah, that would be 2019.
Before COVID.
So here, no, but I can email it to you, but it's also on the VDOE website under the
Okay.
school profile.
Okay. Yeah, if you could email, I'd appreciate it.
Absolutely.
I will say, I'm gonna say Dr. Tyndall and team, it's much better than I had expected. So hold your chin up high. Yeah.
Our teachers and students worked extremely hard this year.
Yeah. Given the challenges with so many long-term subs in place and kids coming back, just because COVID's not right there in our face like it was, does not mean it has not been a challenging year. And yeah, hold your chin high. This is not something to hold your head low over.
Thank you. I will make sure that I share that tomorrow in our executive.
Mr. McQuarrie, is there a specific question you're looking for with that data? And I did give it to you about 3 months back, but I will put it back at your
I
fingertips
just didn't
tomorrow.
recall.
You were looking to
I was
see
just
what
kind
the
of to
trend
see
was
how we were
pre-
pre-COVID. I was just wanting to compare it pre-COVID, basically.
Got you. So I can tell you what reading, we did not hit the target at SP Martin. We were in the 60%. That's why they're in school improvement. For math, we did hit the target. That is that school strength historically under Dr. Sterling's tenure, which is why the redesign was done at JPK. Part of the reason why. And then with science, that's when we hit the dip for the year that you asked, because we haven't had a licensed science teacher since then, so we did not hit the target.
Okay.
So science and reading are why we are in.
Thanks.
All right, Dr. Tindall, you got a seat. Thank you.
I just had a quick question.
Yes, ma'am. Carrie Johnson.
I'm glad to see the growth.
Yes.
And I was just wondering, how long is it going to take to recover learning loss? Because I don't think it's a one-to-one. I don't think you could say if they were out 1 year, it's going to take 1 year to recover. Like, I expect it to be more than that. But, I mean, I'm super glad to see that it is trending upward. I'm just wondering, realistically, when can we look to get back to those numbers? Like, is this a discussion that's been had by educators and, you know, like to say we expect it to take twice as long to get back, or?
Carrie Johnson, I wish I had a $100 bill for every question you ask. I could retire now. That is a great question. So prior to the pandemic, for Title I schools or schools that were turnaround schools where everyone was going, the research said that it would take 3 years
Okay.
for change to happen, for lasting significant change to stay in place. So that was prior to the pandemic. Where that research is now, I'm sure it's going to be even more. But prior to it,
I saw an article, it's been a couple months back, where one professor was saying they fully anticipate it will take a decade.
Right. I don't want people in the community or somewhere to look at these numbers and scoff at them, because I realize that it's going to take a significant amount of time, especially when you're talking about that group that hadn't entered school yet and started those primary years, you know, under, you know, the COVID restrictions, you know, because usually you're learning to read K through, you know, 2 and then reading to learn past that. And they were already in that reading to learn phase before they got, you know, those fundamentals. So I want people to know that we're not bad. I mean, this trend upward is good.
Absolutely, and I love how you emphasize that we're making growth, because remember, that's why the state changed the way the targets are set, so that growth is included as well, because it just wasn't hitting the certain target, and kids are measured in different ways, and not all kids do well with testing. So that's why we want to emphasize we are trending up and we are making growth.
Right, and I just clarify what my question is. To me, I'm real pleased to see the growth. So I was wanting to compare it pre-COVID, because to me, last year was hopefully an anomaly. Hopefully it doesn't take 3 years, 10 years, hopefully, you know, because I noticed the whole division's been pushing to improve beyond, and COVID was, God, let's get the chair from out from under
I
you.
assure you,
kind of thing.
Ms. Burkhalter is not going to stop.
No, not at all. Not at all. So, no, I'm encouraged as well. But to me, having, I guess, 19 was the previous year, to me that actually provides a better picture, actually, to see where we're at, as opposed just to last year.
Okay. Anything else for Samuel P. Morton's data? All right. Next, we have Joseph P. King Jr. Middle School. So you'll see here we have grade 7 reading at 73%, grade 7 at 72%, grade 8 at 72%, and then we have a combined rate of 62%. The writing was at 29% last year. And then for math, we have grade 6 at 76%, grade 8 52%, algebra 1 34%, geometry 50%, and a combined rate for 57%. The science was at 24% for grade 8, and grade 8 civics was 43%. So if we do our comparison to look at our growth from last year to this year, you can see that for reading, JPK is trending up. They fell below the 60% mark last year, but they're above it this year. For math, they fell just above the 20%, and here they're almost at the 60% this year. And then for science, they actually trended down. But again, we've already discussed those reasons, but it just gives us an area to work on to show growth. Any questions, comments, or concerns for Joseph P. King Junior Middle School? Okay.
Dr. Stafford, I'm just like Dr. Tennendall, you are a first-year principal in that building. That's good trend data showing up. Y'all have put some work into. So, good job.
With the lack of certified science teachers, the difficulty in staffing, do you find that Jason's learning has been helpful? Are they still utilizing that with fidelity, or?
Okay, Johnson, great question. Dr. Sterling and I have went back and forth over this. And the good news, Jason's learning was good when we initially started using it. For where we need to go, they won't meet our needs, so we won't be using Jason's learning for the upcoming school year moving forward. Thankful to you all for approving our new curriculum. We'll be utilizing that more and working closely with the VDOE Science Department to continue to align that. Any other questions?
We're actually getting support from the VDOE for our science, because they see that we're pretty strong and trending in math and reading, but science, they're actually doing consulting, professional development, and support for the division.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Dr. Staff. And then Franklin High School, his end of course reading is currently at 91%. End of course writing is at 90% for a combined rate of 91%. Algebra 1 is at 100%. Algebra 2, 57%. Geometry is not applicable because remember, the students only have to take one math in high school, so he does have students taking geometry classes, but they didn't have to take the SOL test. So his math is at a combined rate for 71%. And I just want to pause here because Mr. Phelps has been in school improvement because he's been accredited conditionally because of the area of math. And last year, year before last, when we shut down, his first semester scores showed that he was trending to hit the target. So if the numbers come in, he will have finally met a goal that he's been striving for 3 years. So tentatively, we just want to commend him for being in the 70s again.
Can we do it, Karen? Yeah, that 100% algebra 1, we'll take that any day.
Yeah.
Someone got on the second or third or fourth.
That's it.
It's okay. Persistence.
So you can see Franklin High School is trending up. His reading was above 75% last year, and he's staying above that and exceeding it. For math, he fell below the 50% mark, but he is at 71%, almost at the 75% mark. For Earth Science, he has a 100% pass rate. Biology, 53%. Chemistry is non-applicable for a combined rate of 54%. And then for World History, 31%. History 2, 25%. U.S. History, 36% for a combined rate of 32%. So you can see here, compare it to last year, he is trending down in these areas, and we know this is just an area for growth for us. Mr. Phelps has already written out his plan of attack and submitted it this week. But we just want to commend all three of the schools with the staff. You know, the teachers work extra hard and they take their scores very personal, and we just want to commend them for the work that they put in with the students, even where the numbers don't show that we are trending up. If you look by strand or you look by student, every student has showed growth in some way thanks to the support of the teachers. So we definitely want to commend all teachers at all schools. Any questions for Franklin High School? Okay, Mr. Phelps, you can have a seat. Good job. So the thing about numbers is they don't have a narrative. And so just to bring everything home, I know Dr. Sterling was like, she didn't tell me she was putting this in here. But if you reflect on the numbers, and I'm going to go backwards. If we start with Franklin High School, you'll see at the bottom of the chart, Franklin High School has 22 licensed teachers, 0 long-term substitutes, and 2 vacancies. When you look at his math and his reading, those are his sustained teachers. Those are the veteran teachers of the division carrying the most years of experience. That is where the numbers align and it speaks to the data. He has new teachers in his history and his science this year. That is where he has it trending down. So you see we have to build them to capacity as well. But I just wanted to be very clear about when we talk about, we keep talking about staffing, we keep talking about vacancies, we keep talking about long-term substitutes. It really is in the numbers, it really is in the classroom, it really is in the teaching. And it's not just with teaching, it's with anything where experience does add up. If you go to Joseph P. King Junior Middle School, 13 licensed teachers, 2 long-term substitutes, 8 teachers, and she just received 2 assistant principals in February. And to hit above a 50% target tentatively, attacking her playing with fidelity every day, that speaks to the admin team and the teachers. But again, we didn't hit the mark. But when you look at the number of licenses, the number of vacancies, and the long-term substitutes, it's pretty remarkable that we hit the numbers that we've hit. And then lastly, Samuel P. Morton Elementary School, licensed teachers 22, long-term substitutes 7, vacancies 9, and 17 total vacancies including long-term substitutes. I say again, for the numbers that we hit in a pandemic, it's quite remarkable where we are for that school to still showing that they're trending up in every subject area. So we're not there, we're still making strides, but we definitely want to thank our teachers for where we are, because I know they felt like on days we weren't going to make it. I know the principals felt like we weren't going to make the target, but we didn't make the state targets, but we met our individual targets because there's not one student in the division that has not made growth. That concludes my presentation. Are there any questions, comments, or concerns with the preliminary SOL data?
Regarding staffing, I mean, is the teacher shortage, I mean, is that severe? Is really, yeah.
It's that severe. And it's getting even worse in the STEM fields with science and mathematics. And like I said, we've had retirements and we're just trying to hold on to bring them back.
Right.
Because there's not applicants at the door to even fill those positions. And it's really sad because that's one of our strengths is mathematics.
And the curriculum specialists that we have, I mean, are they able to help, like in these I don't say problem areas, but like math or science and was it history, I believe.
Yes, so we have curriculums. Well, Franklin High School does not have curriculum specialists because our curriculum specialists are grant funded. SP Morton and JPK, they do. But I just want to preface, and I know that's like, oh, she's going to say this. It's kind of like right now, if I give you 20 kids to take home, 20 kids is a lot to bathe, feed, get in the bed. So that's a lot of capacity building to go through because they support the whole, but they support individually as well. So yes, we do have them working in the areas where we have significant areas of growth, but again, it's just a lot of support to come.
Let me ask you, is it twofold, maybe the lack of experience of the teacher plus needing more teachers?
It's both, correct.
Both those?
Yes, sir. Great questions and comments. Anything else? Well, I'd just like to close out by saying on behalf of the Department of Instruction, Dr. Shelton, it has definitely been a pleasure, and just to echo what Mrs. Phillips has said, your spirit has definitely been very calming and supportive, so thank you for everything that you've done. And Mrs. Phillips, kind of bittersweet, you've been here since I've started, so it'll be different to look up and not see you, but thank you for everything.
You're gonna still see me, you know that. I'll be sitting in your desk, at your desk waiting for you. All right, next up, Superintendent's Report.
Well, thank you, and I love the graphic. School is closed, but school is never really closed for Franklin City Public Schools. Let's move on. We are exhausted. The superintendent's report made certain that every principal was here to speak on behalf, but I'm going to speak on behalf of them, to request an extended break for the 4th of July. We are requesting that the 4th of July off, which you have already graciously given us, but our recommendation is the 5th, 6th, and 7th. All personnel work virtually, and school offices are closed. We are making this request on behalf of all of our teachers and our administrators, and especially me, as far as the administrators are concerned. We need a break. They need a break. We need to recalibrate. And somebody even told me they were going to work in their lawn if we get this done. So the only schools that this would affect would be Franklin High School, because they would have to just push back because they have seat hours, and they would just push back their days, either 3 days, or they would have their students work on campus. So there would probably be no effect at all. And I've already given a rationale. Next.
Well,
Do we need to make a motion?
yeah, do we need to make a motion on that?
Yes, you have to move on that one, please, please.
I move to accept the 4th of July holiday rest request as presented.
I second.
We have a motion and we have a second. Any discussion?
Actually, no, just kidding. Let me scoot over a little further.
Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Nay.
Any abstentions? That motion carries.
All right, thank you, thank you, thank you. All right, next. I was hoping that nobody voted in the audience, so thank you. All right. Next, we had a wonderful time with the Employee Appreciation Celebration today. Many retirees, even though we wish them well, we hope they continue to return. They promised to return. Many awards were given out, service recognition, pins, cheerleaders were there. Every time a new guest came in, the cheerleaders were wall to wall greeting them. There they are right there. It was just a fun time, and it reminded me of the days of old with convocation. And I just want every single principal to know that the convocation theme is set for next year, so you'll get your the theme tomorrow, so you can start working on that. It was just a really, really good time to have everybody together. We broke bread and fellowship. It was just a great, great time.
Those cheerleaders have way too much energy.
Yes. All right, let's move on from that. And that wraps up almost a year. Are there any questions? No? All
No
right, thank you,
question,
Madam
but
Chair.
job well done.
Yes.
It's a good year. Thank you.
by school board members. Important dates are listed there. Monday is a holiday. Yes, it is a holiday for the division as well, now, officially. Summer schedule begins on the 24th, just like we normally have done for several years. And then, of course, we just changed that to where school offices are closed on the 4th, and there's this rest thing that they get for the week. So, yeah, all of that. So, next up, well, I tell you what, while we are on that, important dates to remember. So while we're on that one, school board meeting, the next school board meeting is actually set for July 21st. I don't get to make decisions after June 30th. So the board has the option. Council will not appoint the 2 new members of the board until June 27th. And then, of course, their information will have to go to the courthouse for them to go take their oath. That won't go over until the 28th. So they probably will not be able to go take their oath until the 29th at the earliest. That, you talk about last minute, that's last minute. The board can choose to change that meeting date and move it up. The board can choose to have an organizational meeting, which would not be a work session. You could have a regular meeting that would be your organizational meeting another week during the month and still have your regular meeting on the 21st. Keep in mind that until you meet and have an organizational meeting, you do not have an active chair. So you do not have anyone to be that guiding light of the board, so to speak. So what does the board want to do? Do you want to stick with just the 21st? Do you want to stick with an organizational meeting on the 7th and then a board meeting on the 21st? Do you want to just move it up and have one meeting earlier in the month? We've done it both ways.
I'd suggest we have a meeting on July the 14th, an open meeting, not a work session.
One meeting for the
Yeah.
month on the 14th.
Fine with it. That, and we would, that would include the organization selection.
Is everyone in agreement on that?
I was just wondering what the rationale would be to just keep one meeting but move it up a week as opposed to just have it later if we're only going to have one.
Yeah, I'm thinking the 14th would be the only meeting for July.
Right, but right now it's only the 21st is the only meeting for July. I just didn't know if there was a reason for moving it up a week.
Just so we could get it all done sooner.
Another good reason for that, I will say, the Vsba orientation for new board members, new board clerks, I think it's new board clerks, new chairs and vice chairs is on the 18th. So if you had someone that was appointed,
That's what I was wondering if
Right.
if it's
Right.
time sensitive in some.
So
Also, the
yeah.
education conference is on the 19th.
Yep. Yep, that's gonna be, I've got that on item for discussion as well. So I would encourage the board to consider a meeting before the 21st, just so that whomever goes into that role as chair or vice chair, because at least one of those is going to be somebody that's never done that before. They may want to attend that orientation. They have that opportunity to sign up for it.
So
So why wouldn't you do it on the 7th?
Because that's a rest day.
We just did that.
I'm fine
I
with
was
the
just looking
14th.
at the date.
Just because you're not gonna be here doesn't mean you have to.
You hear that, right? She wants you all to come back.
Oh, my. Baby,
Lasting
said I got rest
influence.
on my mind.
I'm fine with the 14th, personally.
I've got two that say they're fine with the 14th.
Yeah.
3.
Do we need a
14th.
motion? Or?
Marshall.
Miss Williams?
Already agreed. Okay, 14th. Okay.
Thank
So, do we need a motion to amend this? Okay. Have we adopted the schedule for next year? We did? I totally.
I so move. Can I do that?
We,
Can we do that?
Ms. Johnson makes a motion to amend the school board meeting calendar to reflect for the month of July, one meeting on July 14th. Is that correct, Ms. Johnson?
That is exactly what I was thinking.
A motion, do we have a second? We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? That motion carries. Bob brought up a great point. I got an email from Vsba, I think it was 2 days ago, about the Conference on Education. No one from the division has signed up for that yet. I think Bob is going to sign up to go to that. If anyone does want to go, please reach out to Tammy so she can go ahead and get you registered for that. And we'll hit the new school board members up as soon as they are appointed and see if they want to go. Because they can just do the new school board member orientation one day and go straight to the Conference on Education the next. So, but if you do want to go, it is really good. Who's been before? I've been and you've been. Anybody else? It's really, really good. The really great thing about that is you get to see some of the things that are working in other divisions and creative things that they've put in place. And it really gives a lot of ideas. I think Dr. Sterling will probably remember the first time I went. I came back and I had a list and I was like, oh my God, let me tell you all about this. And she's like, hey, slow down, calm down. So, but it really is. It's
And
really
what
good.
is the date again?
July 19th. It's a Tuesday. And it's in Richmond at the Marriott, I think is where they're doing it again this
Yes,
year on Broad
Short.
Street.
It's at Short
Short
Pump.
Pump. Okay. That's right, because they did it, yep. But it's really good. All right, so my whole screen just went blank. Next up is the Governance Handbook. I sent that out. I've gotten 2 responses on that. Mr. McCurry, I got your response back, but I couldn't read your,
Oh, the comments?
wouldn't let me see your comments for some reason.
Okay.
It was not working with me very well.
Some of them were questions. May I just ask the question?
Absolutely.
All right. I found the right page. Okay, let's see. I think it's page 8.
Mhm.
Let's see here. This is under roles and duties of the school board.
Mhm.
16, to review and approve long-range capital improvement plans.
Mhm.
Is that more than the capital, the committee, or does the board do that as a whole?
Well, the committee wouldn't approve anything because the committee
Well,
doesn't approve,
They're
but
going to recommend.
yeah, they would recommend and it would come to the board and the board would approve. So like if we're looking at building a new school because that's the hot button topic lately, that would come to the board and the board would approve those plans for looking at that. If we were looking at, let's say building Travis's own football stadium, that would come to the board and the
But
board would have to approve it.
those plans would become from a committee first? Okay.
More than likely, yes, they would.
Okay. Then 17, to establish school attendance zones. I don't understand that.
So that would be if we had multiple schools, so if we had multiple high schools, we would establish what zones, like Isle of Wight has 2 high schools,
Okay.
what those zones are for each of those high schools.
Okay. To ensure compliance with the standards of quality, number 18. Is that just each board member's responsibility to be familiar, or do we discuss that at
The
any
standards
time?
of quality are published, and the superintendent and the division make sure that we are in compliance with that, and notify us if there's any concerns that we need to be aware of. A great example is when they went through and changed on the school counselors, and they changed that. So the superintendent monitors that, and then she brings forth to us the recommendations for who we need to hire to stay in compliance with the SOQ.
Okay.
And class sizes and things like that, all of that goes under the SOQ.
Okay.
Like the middle, like the elementary has to have a media specialist. I mean, different things they tell you you have to do.
Right. Okay. That's pretty much. I had other comments, but that's my main question. So I'm good.
Did anyone else have any questions, comments, concerns? And then keep in mind, if someone so moves to make a motion to adopt this tonight, and we, as a board, do move forward and adopt it, should things change, like if the mission and vision changes, then you would go back and you would modify the governance handbook to change those items. So it's not like once we adopt and updated, it's
We can amend later.
right.
Right.
Right. We just, my main goal is getting something in place so that as you have these 2 new members coming on, you've got a working document
Correct.
to work with.
Well, I move that we approve it.
I'll second.
We have a motion and we have a second to approve the updated governance handbook. Any questions, discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? That motion carries. So I'll get all of the ugliness off of it from where it's highlighted and stricken through and in different colors, and I'll get it updated. And we'll get, Ms. Moore will have that document ready for everyone come next year. Yay! I feel like that's one major, Bob, I feel like that's one thing we've been working on forever, it feels like. I'm glad to
Yeah.
have that one done.
5 years anyway.
Next up, VSBA Media Honor Roll. VSBA sent this out this week as well. It's their annual time of year for the VSBA Media Honor Roll. Do we want to submit anyone for that this year?
I mean, I think the Tidewater News has trended more positively in our favor.
I think
and I would like to
specifically
recognize that.
Titus Moeller, because he's been the one doing all the articles. Specifically, I would say him. And I've talked to him on several occasions, and he's very much supportive of Franklin and shining that positive light. How do we feel about that?
I think Cowens has kind of helped him come to that conclusion.
I do
So-
too. I do too. So if we are all in agreement, Ms. Moore, can you get that drawn up for me? And if I need to sign off on it, I will, and we'll get that submitted. Right. We did the meeting date for July. We already jumped across that one. Next, business by school board members. Anyone got anything to share?
I found out today that Southampton is giving each of their teachers tomorrow a $4,000 check. $2,000 from their operating budget and $2,000 from ESSER money. But I don't know if they got anything before in the year. Do you know?
Tammy's making sure, no.
Is it contingent upon attendance?
It's just for this year. So any teacher that was on their staff this year is getting $4,000 tomorrow. Now, we paid our teachers 2 payments of $3,000, I believe, so,
A minimum.
yeah. Just for your information, in case somebody says something.
Anything else? The only other thing, we talked at the last meeting about governance training with Vsba having a governance training session once the new board members came on. And we had looked at August, and the August date that we had looked that was available was actually convocation. So that would not work. So went back to Michaela. I did let her know that we would not be coming to Charlottesville for that we would do it virtually since that was the only other option. They were fine with that. So the 2 dates they gave in September were September the 16th and September the 30th. They're both on Fridays. Does the board have a preference which date? The 30th. Anyone got a conflict with the 30th? Okay. And that'll be just like it was last time, 9 a.m. You good with the 30th?
Yeah.
All right, I'll email, you good with the 30th?
That's Friday.
That is
September
a Friday.
30th.
Friday, September 30th. I will email Michaela back and let her know September 30th, 9 o'clock. So put it on your calendars and we will get that done. All right. Minutes, nothing there. The minutes, we did not have them for approval this week. Ms. Moore's going to get them added for the next meeting.
Yes, so what I realized was my computer overwrote the minutes, so the ones that were posted were not the accurate ones, so I could not put them, I had to give you all time to review them, so these are the accurate minutes.
Gotcha. So that'll come back at the July meeting. I'm going to leave it to y'all to have that conversation with the 2 new board members. They can abstain, and as long as you have a majority of those that actually vote, approve it, because that would leave 5 of you. So as long as 3 of you approve it, then you're good, because you would have 5 that would vote. If they choose to abstain, they may say, well, I went back and I looked at the meeting and the minutes match the meeting. So they can vote, but they may choose to abstain. So, all right. So we're not adjourning. We're going to go back into closed. So we will need a motion to go back into closed session.
Pursuant to 2.23711 of the Code of Virginia, I move that the Franklin City School Board convene in a closed session to discuss and consider the assignment, performance, salaries, and resignations of employees and evaluate the performance of departments and schools where such evaluation will necessarily involve discussion of the performance of specific individuals and the superintendent pursuant to Virginia Code Section 2.23711A1.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and we have a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? That motion carries. We are back in closed and we are going to go across the hall and finish up there.